I want to talk about three sets of things which I think are critical for this budget. The first is to basically lay out a roadmap. This is the first budget of first full budget of this government. It has 4 years to go, and it needs to tell its constituents what it plans to do over these 4 years, what are the priorities that it has, how is it going to address them. And although the budget is an annual exercise, at this stage in the government's term, it's very important for people to get a sense of what its long-term commitments are going to be. So it needs to lay out this roadmap, give it a theme or a set of themes that introduces and links up to the financial commitment that it's going to make. The second issue that I want to speak about is the revenue side of the budget. Coming into this budget, the government has faced significant pressures in terms of raising revenues. Revenues have been generally short of the estimates that the previous budget made, and that would suggest some sort of effort to both find ways to raise revenue, raise resources, and also to rein in expenditure if they want to keep the deficit in check. On the revenue side, yes, there will be some adjustment of tax rates and so on. I would like to see a move towards a much more streamlined direct tax regime where as many exemptions as possible are eliminated and the tax rate is brought down. That may take some time to do, but I think the process needs to get started. And on the indirect taxes side, even though the GST is not yet with us, the process is in motion, and the government has to be thinking in terms of what the single rate for the GST will be and start to converge towards that. So I think that's again a process that will be set in motion. These things will not necessarily address the revenue problem. There are other things that need to be done, but they are very much part of the strategy. On the expenditure side, two aspects which are really challenging. One is how do we get subsidies under control, and this requires the putting together of the Aadhaar, the UID system, which now is estimated to be covering close to 800 million people. And if they can use the Aadhaar to target subsidies more effectively, to move from commodity-based subsidies to direct transfers, which is happening particularly in the LPG segment, I think that will, over a period of years, help the government save enormous amounts of money without compromising on the welfare, because a lot of these subsidies are going to people who are not really intended beneficiaries. So keep the beneficiaries in mind, don't lose focus on them, but try and make sure that money that is leaking from the system, to try and contain that. The most important challenge in this budget, I think, is infrastructure. We now know that it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get more money through the private sector into infrastructure. I think the government has come around to the view that public expenditure is now critical to get our infrastructure sector moving again. And to do that, it has to find ways to put more money into the investment process without compromising on fiscal discipline. Now, this is a hugely challenging proposition. There are ways to do it. I myself have been arguing for the setting up of something that could be called a National Infrastructure Fund, which will take some money from the government as equity, but then use that to raise resources from elsewhere and in turn use those resources to finance projects, particularly the ones that are stalled and are now creating such problems with the banks. So that if that problem is addressed meaningfully, I think this budget will be considered a breakthrough budget. But there are lots of challenges that the government has to deal with. I think the saving grace here is that the macroeconomic environment, oil prices internationally, and low inflation and a low current account deficit domestically actually give the government a fair amount of space to operate within.